Well, but one thing I noticed from speaking with so many people around the convention was ever how old or ever how what kind of a physical condition a person was in, everybody spoke so well, and they spoke like professors. I mean, if you ask a question, bam! I mean, it's such a precise answer, and I've never been around people like that that spoke so concisely. I mean, they just got right to the point and in such detail and enthusiasm. You know, is that just the nature of the beast? Do you grow into that type of a person from doing this kind of research?
I really think you do, Eric, because you're dealing with so many details and you're trying to cull out your family from all these various documents. I think doing family history research does kind of create you into a person who can speak well. Let's face it, too. I hate to loop back to something I said many minutes ago, but a lot of people, when they learn just general history, I mean, what can they tell you about, fill in the blank, about Fort Wayne? I mean, find Fort Wayne in a general history book. Maybe you'll find some association with Anthony Wayne. Maybe you'll find some association with Miami's, and that's about it. What? A city that has several hundred years worth of history? Where do you find Fort Wayne in history books? Where do you find African Americans in history books? Probably one of the most underrepresented ethnic groups in all of American history books, K through 12 and at the college level, African Americans. It's like they made no contributions. It's like they didn't live. It's like they didn't exist. But then you start researching families. It's like, wait a minute. There's all kinds of contributions, all kinds of history. So when you're doing your family history, you get very knowledgeable. You get very expert. I mean, I don't want to lay down a gauntlet, and I don't want to make anybody angry, but a genealogist who's done genealogy for 20 years can talk about a city, can talk about his or her family, can talk about her home place much better, in much greater detail and in much better clarity than a PhD historian who's just looked at the broad picture. It's sort of like whether you're trying to do a piece with a 4-inch outside paintbrush and you're just painting it, or whether you're using a real fine camel hair brush where you're making very precise lines. It's a family historian who's making those precise lines, painting, if you will, their family history through documents, through stories, etc. And they're going to be able to articulate better. They're going to be able to give you a truer sense of the history of not only their family, but the places where their family lived. And I think that's why you get that real clarity and that real sense of knowledge, because they are knowledgeable. They've done years of research.
You know, I have some more clips to show, but you just stepped on some things. You stepped on some landmines just then. Fort Wayne has so much uniqueness about it, and yet we don't glorify our originality, not only to ourselves. It seems as though the main focus in promoting Fort Wayne is to promote outside of Fort Wayne to attract businesses and what have you to come here. But the people here remain ignorant about where we live and the history and heritage of this town. And then speaking with educators, I found out in 2008 they took Indians and Kikianga out of the curriculum in the schools. Why are we outraged about that? You know, I mean, I'm not trying to get blended in any politics here, but it just it's really frustrating to know so much about your city, but yet it seems like outside of the library, it's hush hush. We want to keep it a secret.
I don't have any good answers to that question, Eric. I really haven't studied it, and I think it's a question worthy of a lot of study. What I can say, to loop back around on the other side, that's even more reason why I think family history is so important. Not to get off on a tangent, but my oldest son came home his junior year of college at Christmas time. So excited, so ecstatic, sort of in a teasing mode. He was going to get old Dad. He told me, he goes, you know, I will have completed my undergraduate career at University of Michigan, one of the finest universities in the country, without ever having to take one history course. and he thought that was a great thing. I think it's a tragedy. Why was he so intent on not taking history in his collegiate undergraduate career? Likely because it was a horribly boring subject during his K through 12 career. Likely because history was the 4-inch broad paintbrush. Likely because he used sanitized, politically correct textbooks. Likely because he never really had a chance to look at some of the things that you just articulated, Eric, some of the neat things about a time period, a community, a place. And all the more reason, in my opinion, why family history is so important. If you really want to know the history of an area, it's not in a textbook. It's in the family histories of the people who lived in that area. That's where you find out what people really did in that area. That's why I'm so happy when high school teachers and undergraduate teachers fold family history into the history curriculum, because it's a powerful way of teaching history, and it's a correct way of teaching history. It really helps people see what I call true history, not the New York Random House editor's version of history, but true history, history where it's lived. Don't want to digress too much. A number of years ago, the Association of American, I'm going to always get those initials wrong, AASLH, the American Society of State and Local History, they commissioned a study. And guess what they were studying? Where is history? So they spent lots and lots of money. I don't know how much it was. If they spent 5 cents, it was probably too much, because all they would do was ask you and I where history is. And after months of study and compilation and dialogue and all kinds of findings, guess what their ultimate finding was? History is lived at the local level. What does that really say? If you want to find out about family history, study the families in the community. It's not some textbook, it's not some broad brush approach to it. It's studying the history. We could have told them that. If you want to find out what's happening in Fort Wayne, or you want to find out what's happening in Rowan County, North Carolina, or in Denton County, Missouri, who are the families that are living there? Where do they worship? Where do they go to school? What do they do? Do they farm? Do they work in a plant? It's amazing in its simplicity. So why doesn't a community stand up for its heritage? I don't know that. My guess is because it's not taught. My guess is because people aren't paying attention to, hey, history isn't what Random House tells us in a textbook. History is the histories of the families that lived in a particular area.